Okay, so this is your test specimen. Test specimen. Generally, we do almost 90 to 95% machine elements are subjected to tensile strength, and this is the reason always we talk about the tensile test. But compressive test is also done for concrete, civil engineering. They do because the building column are subjected to compressive stress. But in mechanical engineering, generally we design machine elements, but these machine elements are subjected to tensile stress. This is the reason we always talk about the tensile stress or tensile test. So specimen force we apply, we pull it, and in this cross section, stress is developed. Then we draw a curve between stress and strain. Stress and strain. Strain is drawn in an x-axis, and stress is drawn in a y-axis. Reason is because strain is an independent variable. Is an independent variable, and that is also measurable. And applying Hooke's law, we can find that is it. We can find stress. So this is the reason we draw strain in a x-axis, because it is measurable. It is an independent variable, and once we measure this strain by the Hooke's law, applying Hooke's law, you can find the stress. Corresponding stress value we draw in a y-axis. So this is the reason we draw strain in a x-axis. Now specimen is loaded, and we have cross section here. When we pull it, it elongates. It elongates, and strain is change in length divided by original length. Again, strains are various type. It may be an engineering strain, or true strain, or green strain. So here we are talking about the engineering strain. We are talking about the engineering. Engineering strains means where the elongation, this change is very small as compared to original length. So change in length is in engineering strength, the percentage change is only 0.5% or 1% or 2%. So if it is 100 centimeter length is the original length, the elongation will be, if it is 1%, is 1 centimeter. So engineering strength percentage change is small. But when we convert true strain, or we call it is one is green strain. In true strain, change in length divided by, we don't take original length, we take that instantaneous length. Change in length, instantaneous length. That I will talk in that wire drawing process. Wire drawing, I will talk about the true strain or true stress. So here we are talking about the engineering strain where percentage is small. So we load it, and when force is applied, stress is developed, and there is a point up to which the stress is proportional to strain, or it is maybe strain is proportional to strain also. But here, when this proportional, it is Hooke's law. But this is not Hooke's law, because Hooke's law is your that K or E, sigma is equal to E epsilon. So it will be 1 by E, right now, 1 by E. So, but this is not your Hooke's law, this is your Hooke's law. But this is true. But the proportionally constant will change. One is your modulus of elasticity, you have three modulus, modulus of elasticity, modulus of rigidity, and bulk modulus. So when stress is proportional to strain, that is Hooke's law, and the constant of proportionality E is modulus of elasticity. We can also say that strain is proportional to stress, but the constant will be 1 by E. Because in some time interview they ask you, what is Hooke's law? Hooke's law, okay sir, stress is proportional to strain. Interviewer may ask you whether strain is proportional to strain, it is Hooke's law. You have to be very careful to tell that yes, that is also Hooke's law, but the proportionally constant is 1 by E. That is not modulus of elasticity, that is 1 by modulus of elasticity. So when you stretch it up to some point, the stress is proportional to strain, that we call proportionality limit, and Hooke's law is valid up to this point only. Hooke's law is valid up to this point. Somebody asks you Hooke's law is valid up to elastic proportional limit or elastic limit. I will talk just now. I will say elastic limit. One is elastic limit. Also, after that there is elastic limit. Generally, in a steel or mild steel, this proportionality limit and elastic limit are very close. Very close. This is the reason in your book, sometime they will write proportional limit, sometime they will write elastic limit. But be careful that Hooke's law is valid only up to proportional limit, but proportional limit and elastic limit is that limit up to which the elastic property of material contains. So you have proportional limit, then after that you have an elastic limit. Elastic limit means after that limit, material does not regain their original shape. Proportional limit is different, elastic limit is different. Proportionality limit is that limit up to which stress is proportional to strain, and elastic limit is that limit up to which material can regain their original shape. So you have means if you so elastic limit is just after the proportional limit, but sometime in some book they write proportional limit and elastic limit both are same. The reason is very simple, because in a steel or mild steel it is very close. So proportional limit and elastic limit both are close. So it matches. Let's say sometime in the place of proportional limit people write elastic limit, but in reality proportional limit. Again, you keep on stretching, you will reach a yield point that we call upper yield point. So basically there are 5 significance points. So I am discussing these 5 significance point in a stress strain curve. When you pull a specimen, you will find that there is a particular stress and strain value at which before the point and after the point the material behavior is different. So these points are points of significance, points of importance. That's why we are discussing these 5 points in details. There are infinite number of points, but all are not important. Where behavior of the material is different before the point and after the point. Point means it's the xy coordinate. Here x is strain and y is your stress. So there is a point, there is a stress strain value. Before that you have some property, some behavior, and after that some behavior. So there, in the stress strain curve we find total 5 points of importance. So first is proportional limit, second is elastic limit. As I discussed, elastic limit up to it, it's remain in elastic behavior, it shows elastic behavior. The upper yield point is having not that much significance, but when stress increases, so here it is like this. So this is your upper yield point, this is your elastic limit, and this is your proportional limit. Upper yield point. After upper yield point, what happens? Stress decreases, but strain increases. So this is an again point where without applying any stress, even you decrease the stress, strain increases. That point we call upper yield point. It is not having that much significance, but yes, you have to understand it like that. After upper yield point, without increasing the stress, strain increases. Then we reaches to a lower yield point. Lower yield point is having a great importance. Lower yield points. If anybody wants to write, please write these things. Otherwise, I will erase. I will erase. Or please, if you want to write, you please write. Other, I am going to erase this. Once you complete, please yes, go ahead. Sir, why it is increasing strain without considering stress at upper yield point? Yes, Ravichandran, have you seen the fighting between, it is actually dislocation. I will giving an analogy. It is all about the dislocation movement, whether it is point defect or line defect or volume defect. So when it is thing like that, some you are stretching material starts breaking. And one, have you heard about that sticking friction? Static friction, first to apply the force, it will require very large amount of force to move the body. But once it moved, you require less amount of force. So to make the once it reaches to the plastic zone, means after elastic there is plastic zone. Up to elastic limit, you have elastic behavior. We call actually elastic state. And after that, we call material reaches in a plastic state. Plastic state means once you deform it, it will remain in a deformed position. Material starts yielding. Material starts breaking. Once you need the cohesion, I mean the intermolecular attraction, basically all are intermolecular force. You have to take out the material right now. So once it breaks, so it starts breaks, so it surrendered, and finally without applying force, with that momentum only material continue to break. So because material resists that yielding, and once it starts yielding, even you don't apply force, it stress, force or stress, it starts strain increases. Strain increases means length increases, change in length increases. So it is all about internal mechanism, how it breaks. That is again a very deep material science theory. In fact, it is all about that intermolecular attraction. And when you see the curve of intermolecular attraction versus distance curve, you will find that you have one potential you have to apply. Are you getting Ravi Chandraji? Yes, fine. Yes, yes. So, yeah, I'm going to continue this. So, this is lower yield point. It is having great significance. Lower yield point. This is actually material surrender. Material surrender. Okay. Material tells that I am done. I am not able to take the load, and now material starts breaking. Breaks. So this is the your this is actually your yielding, and this is your lower yield point. So lower in all our strength calculation, we design a machine element either based on, it is based on the lower yield point, lower yield point, or ultimate strength depending upon the material. So if it is a brittle material, generally we design based on ultimate strength, and when it is ductile material, we design based on lower yield point. So now it has reached to the plastic zone. Up to elastic limit, you had that elastic strength, and then you have started plastic strain, plastic strain. After plastic strain, now you are again increasing the load, and this is the maximum load that material can take before fracture or before completely. This is the maximum load that material can take, maximum load. And then necking starts here. Necking starts means this portion will become smaller, and finally one point reaches where material finally separates. So we have 5 points of significance for your understanding. Just to understand, you have 4: proportional limit, elastic limit, upper yield point, lower yield point, and ultimate strength. This is actually strength, and that is your breaking point. This is the point. So the stress corresponding maximum load material can take this much, that we call actually ultimate strength, and this is only for mild steel. Still, because mild steel, almost we use 90% material is mild steel. So this is the stress strain curve, right now. Now again I'm coming to that point, strain aging. So strain aging, we are loading the material, and it reaches point A right now. And this is the first test we did. Then if first test were done, and without any time interval, without any time gap, you are again loading. So it will follow this. But if you give some time to the material, means suppose if you left for 1 week, or suppose 1 day, and again reload, what you see that yield point is increased. So unload, retest after aging, material gets hardened. So strain aging is the phenomena of increasing hardness due to aging. Generally, this behavior is seen in aluminum, tungsten, titanium. And what is the reason for that? Reason for that is simple. Because we have a carbon, nitrogen as impurities in a steel. Carbon increases hardness, It gets diffused with time. When we allow it for some time, it gets into because you have iron, Fe, and that gap you have a carbon, because carbon is of a small size. Carbon size is small as compared to iron. So it gets diffused, and impurities, the carbon increases hardness, yield strength, and finally that yield strength increases. So basically, strain is a phenomena of increasing hardness due to time, due to aging. And the reason for that is, in that time, carbon, nitrogen get diffused into the iron, and carbon, nitrogen is an interstitial impurities, means it is because you have iron bigger size, carbon is smaller size, and in gap between iron and between two iron atoms, you have that carbon is there, but with time it gets diffused, and finally hardness and yield strength increases. Another phenomena, why this I am discussing, because this will be used in our forming. So one is called strain hardening. Strain hardening is same, but here time factor is not there. We call it strain hardening or work hardening. We call it work hardening or strain hardening. So it is also a phenomena of increasing hardness of material when material is deformed plastically. Means let us understand this curve again. Here aging factor is not there. So we load it. You have loaded up to point A. Means you cross the elastic limit, proportional limit, upper end point, lower end point. Means you have reached the plastic zone. Point A is in a plastic zone. And now you release the load. You release the load. It will not if you load up to elastic limit, you load it up to this point and you unload it, it will follow same path. Same path will be followed. But once you reaches here, plastic zone, it will not follow same path. So point A is in a plastic stage. So it will not follow this path, it will follow this path. And this is your strain. And that we call actually plastic strain. So you have two strain up to your, if this is your elastic limit. So you have, this is your elastic strain. And you have a now plastic strain. So when you load up to this point, there will be elastic strain and plastic strain. When you unload it, there will be recovery of elastic strain, but there will not be any recovery of, there will not be recovery of plastic strain. So this plastic strain, this is total strain, right? No, this is total strain. This is total strain, and you have plastic strain. So this strain will remain there. This will follow slightly taper. It will not be like this. Reason is that this is your elastic strain, and that will be recovered. Means it will shift like this. So finally, this will be only plastic strain. So material you have unloaded here. So material will follow this path. It will come here. If you again load. When I say load means in our forming process, it will be your load, metal working. You are applying force, whether it is rolling, wire drawing or forging, rolling or wire drawing. In all this process, that is metal working of metal, right now. Basically, we are applying load, whether it is tensile load or compressive load or shear load. So now again you apply force, stress will develop and will follow this path. But this time what will happen? It will go beyond this A, and it will follow like this. So this S1 path is original path without unload and applying force, without unload and reload. And S2 is you have unloaded and then again reloaded. So now what you see that all mechanical properties, your yield point now has increased, ultimate point has increased, ultimate, everything is increased. And this happens because dislocation interacts. When you first load, the line defect moves and it get anchored. Means in first attempt when you load it, it gets anchored. It gets, I cannot show, okay, but you anchor, it will get anchored. So dislocation interact in a first interact and get anchored. Anchored, you check my spelling is okay. Anchored means dislocation get anchored, and finally that is the reason to increase the hardness, yield point and ultimate strength. So basically work hardening or stress hardening is the phenomena of increasing yield strength or ultimate strength and hardness because of the cold working of the material, and this happens due to the dislocation interaction, right? So this is the work hardening. And we'll discuss now cold working process, hot working process, where we'll see where work hardening is there, where work hardening is not there. Clear to everybody? Sir, why again stress increase after lower yield point? Yes, I told Prasad, it is all about dislocation anchoring. Dislocation is the line defect. When I will teach you the material science, there are material science I will teach you, everything I will teach you. In the crystal structure I will teach you. You have body center, cubic structure, or simple cubic, or face centered cubic structure, or hexagonally closed crack structure, where this, how this crystal arrangement is there, what is the line defect, what is the point defect, what is interstitial impurity, what is substitutional impurities. In that line defect is the missing atom ions, and that missing dislocation is the only reason for yielding. And once we you can see a YouTube video dislocation movement, means that line defect, dislocation is the line defect. It may be something extra material, extra atoms, or missing atoms in a row, in a column. And finally pure crystal, it is impossible to find, and now research is going on to find out the pure crystal in a big size. Pure crystal is having highest mechanical property. This is the reason turbine blades are made of single crystal material, because the turbine material is subject to high stress, temperature, load, everything. Yes. So dislocation, when it moves, it is like carpet analogy. You have very big carpet, and finally there is a disturbance in that carpet, and it gets interact. It gets anchored once it touched. So this is the reason. So dislocation means you have a. I will teach you in that for time being, just to understand it, that because of the dislocation interaction, it gets anchored, it gets trapped, it gets anchored. Right now, it gets anchored. Get anchored like this. This is anchoring. Time being, yes, understand. Okay. So work hardening basic understanding is there now, and yes, now we'll understand some theory of failures, because material has to fail, right? We have to change the shape. In a forming process, we change the shape. Forming process, shape is changed by applying external force. So basically, there are 5 types of theory of failures. Again, that is 5 type of theory of failure. 5 types of 5 theory, or 5 type, or we can 5 theory on failure of a material. But here I am going to discuss only 2 main. You know, in strength of material, again, you have to study. So first is your principal stress theory, or then you have a, we call, I write all 5. One is called maximum strain stress, or stress theory, or we call it is Rankine theory. Second is your maximum strain. Third one is your Tresca, or maximum stress, maximum shear stress. Fourth is your distortion, or total energy, maximum total energy, maximum total energy. And fifth is your maximum distortion energy. Okay, so these things I will discuss in details in a strength of material chapter, where there will be a separate chapter theory of failure. But in a forming or mechanical working of metal, just will understand maximum shear stress theory means when maximum shear stress, that is tau, reaches to a maximum value. And you know, this is the, from the Mohr circle we get this, and finally the principal stress in, I am talking about the 2-dimensional, and it is again in a x direction, and that is principal stress in a y direction. So what is principal stress? Principal stress means when there is a multiple loading, maybe a tensile, compressive, bending, or shearing. So material will be subjected to shear stress and normal stress. But if we make shear stress 0, then there will be change in a normal stress. So when shear stress is 0, normal stress will change into the principal stress. Again, I will discuss in a stress strain in a strength of material. So this is the maximum, and that will reach to maximum. So this is the Tresca maximum shear stress theory. One is called, this topic is not required, but anyway, von Mises theory, that is distortion energy theory. What happens this theory? This will derive. We will derive in a strength of material. What happens? Energy, just I tell you, go and study. Total energy is consumed in a two. One is changing the shape, and one is the distorting the body. So you have one material, and that is being compressed, so it will change the shape. So total energy will be consumed. Total energy will be consumed in the change the shape, in the shape, size, plus distortion. So we here only this part is taken into that account, and here we assume that material fails due to this energy only, distortion energy. Okay, so now I am coming to our main topic, that is, well, forming. That is our main topic, right? So forming classification we'll discuss. So we have bulk forming. What is bulk forming? bulk forming, and one we call it the seed forming. Bulk forming means you have an area divided by volume. Area divided by volume is low. Low means volume is high, area is small. Okay, fine. So I'm talking about the bulk forming process means you have, suppose if I say like this is one cube or one is cylinder, or we call it is very a thin sheet. Thin sheet. So here if you calculate area and volume, so what you will find that in these two cases, one is case one, this is one case, and this is another case. So sheet will be having large area. I am talking about the surface area. Large area, and volume is small. Volume is small because volume is small. Here you will see area is small, and volume high. So bulk forming means where volume is large and area is small. Means this ratio is low. If this ratio is low, then we call it is bulk forming. And if this ratio is high, we call it is seed forming. In seed forming, what will happen? Area will be more, volume will be less. And the bulk forming, volume will be more, bulk forming. So basically forging is bulk forming. Extrusion in forging is the metal working of metal. Here we apply localized compressive force to change the shape of material. Extrusion is an again compressive force. We mold, a semi-solid state material, we force in a die, and we take out the desired cross-sectional area product. Rolling is again a bulk forming process where we compress a ingot into sheet by applying again compressive and shear stress. There will be two rolls. Then drawing. Drawing means we call it is wire drawing. Again, it is like extrusion only, but in extrusion we are pushing the material. In wire drawing, we pull the material. Rod or wire tube drawing, same thing. And then you have a sheet. Sheet metal, we are searing or piercing or blanking. We cut the sheet, we make a hole in the sheet, or we take out some blank, that is circular size shape, we call actually blank. We can take this, that we call blanking. And searing or piercing means cutting. And bending, bending is very big things. All car body materials are of sheet, made of sheet, and this bending of sheet metal is very important. So we'll understand bending. Then you have deep drawing is another sheet metal forming process where we make deep or shallow cup shape from the sheet. So we can make a glass, cup, or pressure cooker, or even a utensil. Shallow drawing is again when height is less. Height less. This height is less, we call it shallow drawing. So everything we'll discuss. All we'll discuss. All we will discuss. We will find load. We'll find load, energy, and other parameters involved. So one by one we'll discuss. We'll find the load estimation, how much load is required to change the shape, how much, suppose you want to change the size, you want to increase the length, you want to decrease the thickness, how much load is required, how much energy will be consumed, everything we'll discuss of all. Okay, am I clear to all? Please. Please write yes, no, maybe. Just wait for 30 seconds. I am going to have a water. So we will start from rolling. So what is rolling? Have you gone through the material? So first, few terms you will understand because complete understanding at least of heart of the rolling is important. So ingot. Ingot is the, what is ingot? Ingot is the product of blast furnace, cupola furnace, or induction furnace. So basically, ingot is the input material for rolling process. Ingot is the ingot is input material. Sometimes some interview they ask what is the input material for rolling. So ingot, and what is ingot? Ingot is the product of blast furnace, cupola furnace, and that is induction. And again, rolling is a rapid mass production and continuous process that we know. So basically, we take the ingot, we hot roll, hot and cold. I have not discussed, I think, right? Okay. So what is hot working and cold working? First, we'll quickly we'll understand. what is hot working process and what is cold working process. Sometime they might ask you right now. So before that, we'll understand what is hot working and cold working. So quickly we'll understand what is hot working and cold working. Fine. So here I am writing hot working and here writing on cold working. It is applicable to all forming process. So in cold working process, you know, there will be work hardening. Present. Absence. Absence of work hardening. That is first. Then second, hot working. The working temperature. Working temperature means material temperature will be above recrystallization temperature. Already I have discussed recrystallization temperature as is that temperature at which sir, what is work hardening? Already I discussed Parveen. Already you missed the class. Already I have discussed work hardening. You joined late. Anyway, you can watch the recorded video. It is being recorded. Okay, Parveen? Can you hear me? Already I have discussed work hardening and strain aging. Fine. So working temperature above recrystallization temperature, and we have already discussed the recrystallization temperature, and that below recrystallization temperature, like crystallization temperature. So generally 2/3 of the melting temperature is 2/3 of melting temperature is recrystallization temperature. Suppose if iron is 1539 degrees centigrade melting temperature or melting point, so 2/3 means 60% of 1539 is your recrystallization temperature. So it is almost, suppose 5, so 500 right now, so it is 1000. So if working temperature, if iron is at above 100 degrees centigrade, 1000 degrees centigrade, we call actually hot working. If it is below 1000, we call it is cold working. So it is not necessarily cold working always is at a room temperature. Right now, sometime room temperature may be hot working process for some material like lead. And again, I am telling sometime, and for some material, room temperature is your hot working process. Somebody asked me doubt. What is the doubt? So why work hardening is absent in a hot working process? Because of annealing. Again, heat treatment process. You have to understand that heat process first. Heat treatment of the steel, whether it is annealing or tempering or quenching, or it is normalizing, or whether it is you have to understand the iron carbon equilibrium diagram and temperature transformation TTE diagram right now. So you have different microstructure. You have microstructure, that is your austenite, benite, perlite, martensite, cementite. right now. So in cold working, that work hardening is relieved because of the high temperature, because of the relaxation, because of the recovery. Because of the so okay, clear, Prasad? Or whether I need to discuss more, then we'll not be able to load estimate the rolling process. It is clear to all. No, no, you have any doubt? Work hardening is absent in a hot working process because of the recovery, because of we heat it and it get when it, there are, I'm telling you again, there are three ways to change the mechanical property of the material. Students, it is very fundamental question, and every mechanical engineer must understand this thing, because we are dealing with the material and the mechanical property, physical mechanical property, chemical property, or with the physical property. We must understand of the material. So to alter the mechanical property, how to change the mechanical property, there are three ways to change the mechanical property. One is called alloying. Just we mix some alloying element like carbon, you have carbon, chromium, nickel, manganese, zinc, molybdenum, tungsten, titanium, cobalt. This small percentage of this alloying element changes the mechanical property of the material, either by act as a impurity, or it diffuses into the material, or it changes the mechanical property finally. Other way to change the mechanical property of material is the heat treatment process. By controlling the time temperature with time, uh, we can control the structure, we control the microstructure of the material. So once we heat it a iron above critical point temperature in the iron carbon equilibrium diagram, again I will understand, I will make you understand. uh, Please, so iron carbon equilibrium diagram, if anybody remember this, what is happening? Huh? I'm going to delete this. I'm going to erase this. If you want to write, please write. So iron carbon equilibrium diagram. Anybody remember iron carbon equilibrium diagram? Do you remember this curve? Anybody remember this? You have a first you are austenite. You have different microstructure. Austenite. You have a ferrite. You have cementite. You have a perlite. You have benite. You have a martensite. So when we austenite, it reaches to austenite gamma phase, and when you cool it, you are getting different microstructure. So it depends upon the cooling rate and percentage of carbon. final microstructure we obtain. And each all my microstructure is having their own mechanical property. So if we talk about the austenite, it is an FCC structure. It is having ductile nature. Ferrite is having less percentage of carbon, and again it is in mild. Martensite is a hard structure. Cementite is the hardest structure. So by controlling the microstructure size, right now, you can change the mechanical property of the material. Third one is your forming process. By imparting, by controlling the localized compressive force, we can achieve a directional strength. So three ways to change the mechanical property. So what was the here topic? Hot working process. Prasad, it is clear to you all? Clear? Or whether I need to repeat? I can teach you iron carbon equilibrium diagram now, but I think we can waste time. Because see, material science will be taught in a material science talk, where we have to understand all this crystal material structure, then phase diagram, where iron carbon equilibrium diagram is there, then your temperature transformation curve, right now, then all heat treatment process, or whether it is surface treatment process or heat treatment process, everything you have to discuss. Anyway, we should not divert. So for some metal room work hardening is your room temperature is a hot working process. Again, in that hot working process is your fourth number is oxidation will be there. Oxidation, and here there will be no oxidation, because it will be at a higher temperature, and that higher temperature iron will react to the atmosphere, and that oxidation uh, rough surface will form. Rough surface because of the oxidation. Fifth number is low force will be required. Low force or stress will be required. Low force or low stress will be required. High force will be required, because at higher temperature the stress strain curve shifts down because of the, and because of that this hot working process requires low force and less amount of force. In the less amount of force, metal will be deformed. Then the high force will be required. The sixth is your this is actually your finishing operation. Finishing, and this is your rough operation. So these are six difference between hot working and cold working process. Again, in hot working process, because it is happens at a higher temperature above recrystallization temperature, so new grain will form. New grain will form. New grain will form. New grain will form. And because of this oxidation, there will be surface defect. There will not be any surface defect. That is why it is finishing operation. So this is the basic difference between hot working and cold working. It is there in a notes. You can read that. Okay. So first is your absence of work hardening in a hot working process. Then you have in this cold working, this is hot working. So working temperature above recrystallization, oxidation. There will be rough surface defect, oxidation. Then you have low force will be required, and then it is a rough operation, or new grain will be formed. And cold working process, again I am briefing you, work hardness will be present, mechanical property, mechanical strength increases, below recrystallization, that is 1000 degrees centigrade for iron. Similarly, you can calculate for other 2/3 of the melting temperature. Hot working process may be room temperature for some metal, no oxidation percent, final finishing and all. Okay, so Here we were talking on hot rolling. So ingot will be first hot rolled. It will form into slab, billet, and bloom. So, and then again hot rolling process. It will plate, sheet, bars, rod, structural section. Finally, finishing operation, that is cold rolling. It will be your plain sheet, wires like this. So, what is billet, bloom? I'm telling you this. This always you remember to understand. Slab size is always greater than bloom and billet. Cross sectional area of the slab is, it varies from 500 millimeter to 1800 millimeter, means 0.5 meter to 1.8 meter, and thickness will be 50 to 300 mm. And billets cross section, generally this is cross section area of the billet, and this is a cross sectional area of the slab. Length can be anything. Length can be anything, and that is 150 millimeter square maximum. Right? You can calculate this. And slab size is this much, 50 to 400 millimeter square. That is your slab. Sorry, this is your bloom, right? This is your bloom. Actually, copy paste was the problem. Bloom. This is your bloom, right? Now coming to this rolling process, load estimation in a rolling. Load estimation in a rolling. What regarding to difference in a mechanical property? What is that, Prasad? What is your doubt? What regarding to difference in mechanical property? Mechanical property, you know what is ultimate strength, yield strength, resilience, toughness, hardness, brittleness, plasticity, elasticity. These are all mechanical properties. What is mechanical property? Mechanical property is ultimate strength, yield strength, hardness, resilience, toughness, brittleness, plasticity, elasticity. As I said, cold working is a, you are not following me, Sims. Hot working is having lower mechanical property. Cold working is having higher mechanical property. Cold working is having higher mechanical property because of the presence of work hardening. Is it clear to you, Prasad? Tell me. Cold working is having higher mechanical property than hot working process. It is already I have written. Tell me. And cold working is having higher mechanical property because of the presence of work hardening. Because work hardening increases hardness and yield strength. Means hardening improves the mechanical property. It imparts hardness and all ultimate strength, or it is yield strength. Hot working having poor mechanical property. Very good. So now we are going to estimate load and understand rolling process. So you have two rolls, cylindrical rolls, means don't think it is in a spherical or something. So it is a cylindrical roll. A roll is like this. So it will be having some diameter and some length also. Two rolls are there of same size, same length, BL. It revolves in a anti-clockwise direction, and this is your unworked grain or non-uniform grain with bigger size grain, and then this is actually is the zone where deformation takes place. Here is the intermediate structure, and finally it is a elongated grain, small uniform grain. So it is happens at it is a hot working cold process. So it is temperature will be above 1000 degrees centigrade. If it is iron, so we have applied force, we have pressed it. So roll moves in this direction. You have to understand, roll moves in this direction. And you know, the when somebody moves rolls, it is moving like this. It is moving like this. So there will be always friction force opposite to the motion, opposite to the motion, right? No, so it moves like this, it moves like this. So there will be friction force on the roll, friction force on the roll always tangential and opposite to the roll motion. Similarly for this. So in this picture I have tried to make you understand that first is that unworked grain, it gets elongated, and then this is your deformation zone, and this angle we call actually bite angle, theta is your bite angle. This we call bite angle. Bite angle is alpha. Bite angle is alpha. And this is, now what we'll do, we'll draw free body diagram. Free body diagram of roll and strip. So this is your strip. Actually what happens, this is the deformation zone here. This is the deformation zone things, right? So material moves like this because of the friction. I will discuss now. And then there is a frictional force opposite to this. Why I have shown here it is shear force. Shear force. And you have compressive force. Compressive stress. Force or stress. So in rolling, both acts. Stress, shear stress, that is friction force or shear stress. And then this is your rolling pressure will act. Now this is the sketch of the rolling. So you have initial thickness T and this is your final thickness. So we'll draw like this. So this much thickness and this theta or alpha, theta or something alpha is bite angle. Bite angle means it is the angle formed by deformation zone, angle formed by deformed zone on center of the roll. So this theta is there and Br is the roll velocity. And B, this is width and sometimes it is equal to roll length. But it is not always true. Sometimes strip will be of bigger width, roll may be of smaller, but it is generally width and roll length is equal. And what happens when it moves? When it moves because of the friction, right? No. So yes, this is the free body diagram of the roll, and let us understand this. You have to understand. In any case, you have to understand. I have drawn multiple picture sketches to make you understand. So this is your frictional force. And because there is a contact, so there will be normal force also. Or we call actually pressure force. It will be always perpendicular to this frictional force and it will it will pass through the center. This is the free body diagram of the roll. So roll will be moving like this. We are giving power to roll. power to roll to move. So it is having constant roll velocity, that is equal to pi dn by 60. D is the diameter of the roll and n is the RPM. Similarly for this roll, so when we talk about the power of roll, power in a rolling, you have to multiply 2 into power of one roll, because one roll cannot do anything. So we'll estimate power of one roll, you have to multiply with 2. So this is the contact pressure force and this is the frictional force act on the roll. This is opposite to the velocity of the roll. So this is opposite. This is the roll velocity direction. This is frictional force opposite. And this is normal compressed. Now, because it is a nice contact, so it is a strip. And this same pressure force will act here from the fluid diagram, and same frictional force will act on the roll from the one side of the roll, and this is same pressure force will act and friction force will act, because roll diameter and the length are same, and power also, where velocity of roll is also same, so everything will be same. Everybody understood this? Please write yes, no, maybe. Rajat is there. Rajat, yes, you have to, actually Rajat is new student. Rajat, you have to go through my notes. You have to standard book also. You have to go through standard book also. Means you have to, I mean, it is an online class. Before attending the class, you have to go through my notes and one standard book, because in any case you have to remember it till examination or sometime entire life. So if you don't repeat many times, it will never help you. And it is difficult for me to make you understand if you are starting from scrap. If you know nothing, then it is very difficult for me to make you understand. So I request you all, uh, please come with full preparation. Then only your rank will be below 100 or 50, or you can get any examination, whether it is okay, fine. Now we have understood the force acts on the roll and the strip, right? Let me copy the what you call content. Fine. So now we have understood that two forces acts on the strip and two forces acts on the strip and the rolls. Before that, we will do some estimation calculation. We'll come back here again. Yeah. Mass in equal to mass out. Mass in is equal to, so this section is 1, this is section 1 and this is section 2. So it is how much mass is going into the roll and how much mass is coming out from the roll. Because energy mass conservation law must be satisfied. So mass flow rate before the roll, in and out. So density of the material and volume flow rate or discharge or volume flow rate of the material, that is Ti into V naught is the cross sectional area and V naught is your velocity. Similar density I am assuming same. So T final into V final into V final, right? Because this is the cross section area, this is B naught and A. Cross section area Q is equal to AB, you know, and mass is rho AB. So cross section area and the velocity. It is we have studied in continuity equation. The cross section area is your this thickness and this length, and velocity perpendicular to the cross section, that is V naught, initial one, density. Then T final is this, and you have to take this cross section, and here is the velocity V final. So T final into V final. Generally, there is no change in a breadth. So V final breadth change, because the purpose here is to change the thickness by increasing length of the material. Spread, we are not interested in a spread. We are not interested in a breadth change. We are not interested in a spread. We are not interested in a breadth change. But if it is given in your problem, then you have to consider. Otherwise, in the general rolling process, here our interest is to reduce the thickness by changing length. So again, density is cancelled. So T initial into B initial equal to T final and V final. Here what we see, T initial is bigger than T final. It means V final is greater than V original. Initial means velocity of roll is constant, but velocity of strip is not constant. Velocity of strip changes from V initial original to V final, and velocity increases. Means up to here you have V, and then here you have a V1. I have written here 1 means after one pass, but there is only one pass. Then this V1 will change into V final, because sometimes there will be multiple roll. So V1 of first pass or first roll will be incoming velocity of the second roll. Suppose another rolling machine is there, right? Another roll is there. So this V1 will be after one pass, this is the velocity. But this V1 is equal to Vf sometimes, right? No? But there is only one pass, then V1 is equal to V final. So what we have observed here, that velocity changes, velocity increases, velocity is not constant, but roll velocity is constant. There is a point where that we call actually neutral point N, where velocity of strip is equal to velocity of roll. That point is called neutral point N. Here point N, neutral point. Means at this point velocity of strip is equal to velocity of roll. So complete rolling will be there only at this point. And here at this AN and ND, in both places, both length, there will be slippage. 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 Means it will slip. Either it is backward slip or forward slip. That is different part. But it is seen from the analysis that there is a point where velocity of roll is equal to velocity of strip, that we call neutral point. And before that neutral point, velocity of roll is higher than velocity of strip. And after neutral point, velocity of strip is higher than velocity of roll. So in that AN, velocity of strip will be less than velocity of roll. And in a DN, ND, velocity of roll, velocity of strip will be higher than velocity of roll. Clear? It is clear about neutral point and Tausif Alam. Yes. Letter, what is that? Parveen, okay, fine. Now coming to the point again. So one is called forward slip and one is called backward slip. So velocity of roll minus initial divided by velocity of roll is your forward slip, and then backward slip is your velocity, final velocity or velocity after one pass minus velocity of roll divided by velocity of roll is your backward slip. This is our terminology. Means there will be forward slip between AN and ND, and ND region there will be backward slip. Now coming to the force again, let us understand it. This is now I have connected this. So this force is on a material and this PR is on a material. Already we have discussed in a free body diagram. So this is your frictional force F and this is your P, pressure force. This force from a roll, and same amount of force F and roll is applied to is there in a F and P. So this frictional force and roll pressure or force normal to the surface, and this alpha, I wrote sometime alpha, or don't confuse, alpha and theta both are bite angle. O is the origin, this is your x axis, this is your y axis. Now what we'll do, this resultant, now coming to this one, so this is your friction force and this is your normal force, this is your alpha This is your alpha, this is your roll center. So this F will break into two components, one in a X direction, other in a Y direction. So F will be F cos alpha and F sin alpha, right? You change the notes because I copy generally. When I type, no, generally I F cos alpha, I will copy and paste. So F sin alpha, because this is alpha, this is your 90 minus alpha, this is your 90, so this is your 90 minus alpha, and again this is your alpha, and this is your 90 minus alpha, and then this is alpha. So this is F cos alpha, and this is your F sin alpha. Again, PR will resolve into two components. One is along x-axis and other y-axis. So this is your alpha, so PR cos alpha, and this is your PR sin alpha. Right? So what is the horizontal component of force? Horizontal x, that is your F cos alpha minus PR sin alpha. So this is this force x in x direction. X direction. Right? So this is on the strip. This is on the strip, right? We have drawn on the strip. Now this strip will move into x direction only when this force, horizontal force, must be greater than and equal to 0. Getting my point? Because this has to be pulled, that is to be moved in x direction, and you know horizontal force component we have added in this. So this force must be greater than, and in limiting condition 0 equal to 0, then only this strip will move. So sin alpha divided by cos alpha, right now, in limiting condition f by PR, or we can say that f by PR greater than or equal to sin alpha by cos alpha. And what is this? This is actually mu. So mu, that is coefficient of friction, between strip and roll. And you know mu is equal to F is equal to mu n. So this is a normal force. So this. So mu must be greater than equal to tan alpha. This is the first condition for rolling. First and first condition for rolling. Means rolling will be possible only when mu is greater than tan alpha. And what is alpha? Alpha is your right angle. It means mu is equal to tan alpha, tan lambda, tan alpha. What is lambda? That is a friction angle. Means friction angle must be greater than or equal to, in limiting condition, equal to bite angle. This is everybody understood? Please write yes, no, maybe. PR sin alpha in a negative x direction. Negative x direction. We are 2D analysis. We are doing only 2D analysis. We are doing for simplicity. And PR sin alpha in a negative x direction. And PR sin alpha, no? PR sin alpha because it acts negative. Yeah, Prashad M. This is your PR sin alpha, man. This is your PR sin alpha. This is F cos alpha. So x net force in x direction. Net force in x direction. Please write down. I will erase. Please write down. I will erase and repeat for Prasad. Dear all, please. Write down. So Prasad, this is your F cos alpha. You are not following me. You have to hear some broadband connection and PC or in laptop you have to study, right? So this is F cos alpha and this is PR sin alpha. So in x direction that is F cos alpha minus PR sin alpha. Now it is clear to Prasad? M Prasad, it is clear to you? And bottom part that I told, this force must be greater than or equal to 0 because in a horizontal direction strip moves. So to move that strip, this force, no, that this force must be greater than or equal to 0. Then in equilibrium condition, I wrote this, and finally I said that this is the friction angle and lambda is greater than alpha. What is the nothing big deal here? Big deal was here up to this point. F cos alpha minus PR sin alpha greater than equal to 0. And the rest is your mu. Mu is your F by PR because friction, you know, friction force is equal to proportional to the normal force, right? And then this is mu. Mu is the friction force, friction coefficient of friction between strip and roll. And finally, I said, so this mu must be greater than equal to this F by PR tan alpha. And finally, we could relate between bite angle and. Okay, thank you. Clear crystal, sir. Okay, that's good. My effort is going in the right direction here. Okay, so now we have understood that what you call forward velocity, backward velocity, and this. Now one is called draft or reduction. Draft and reduction. What is draft and reduction? That we'll calculate. So we have two roles. Please write same time on your notebook. So this is your T initial or T original, or this is your T final. So T initial or the T initial minus T final is your draft. That suppose I will take delta. That is reduction. That is your change in thickness. right? So let us understand this, how to calculate this. This is your R, radius of the roll, right? Okay, leave this. Fine. This is your O, and some name I am putting here now. Some name. Suppose this is your A, this is your M, and this is your D, right? This is your alpha. So total change, that is delta T, is equal to, can I write 2md? This is the change actually. This is a change, from the one roll, and the second roll is there. So this is the reduction, right? Now again the same thing. So total reduction is 2md. Means this. So what is md? 2md. md is your r minus od minus dm, om, r minus om. This is your om. This is your om, and then this is your. So what is this length om? Cos alpha om divided by r. So om is equal to r cos alpha, r cos alpha. So we can write 2 r minus r cos alpha. So 2r 1 minus cos alpha. So this is your one reduction, change in a length. There is 2r r minus cos alpha. Am is your projected length. Projected length. This is your am. So this is your arc, and this is your projected length. Right? So this we can now draft. Draft is equal to 2r 1 minus cos alpha. That is one. Another way to calculate draft is, we can calculate draft in terms of that L is your projected length, right? That is actually R delta. Okay, fine. It is clear to all, this draft. Draft, you understand? So horizontal component of force is responsible for rolling, and we knew that mu greater than 10 alpha right now, and alpha friction angle greater than alpha. What about vertical force? Vertical force. So vertical force is your rolling load. Means one is called roll specific pressure. Roll specific pressure, that is rolling load divided by projected area. Projected area means this is the your deformation zone, and this is your like this, right? So this is your neutral point. This is your A, this is your A and B, this is your theta. So this is your projected length. So this length we take, this projected area means this length is suppose if I write this M, so projected area will be this into width. So we can write rolling load is equal to project L. L is your this L into B. That is roll specific pressure. Roll specific pressure. So rolling load is equal to L into B, that is area, into roll specific pressure that we denote by sigma bar. That sigma bar. So this is the one way to calculate rolling load if we know roll specific pressure. Or we can say that L is equal to L, we can find that is R sin alpha from this, right? No, this is your alpha, this is your R. So sin alpha is equal to P by H. P is your L divided by R. So L is equal to R sin alpha. So you can write rolling load is equal to R sin alpha B into roll specific pressure. Then what about, so roll, what happens, just one plot is there in my notes just to check this. So you have a pressure, a roll specific pressure, you have a A, you have N, you have D. This is the entry. So it goes like this, roll pressure increases, and at neutral point it is the maximum, then it decreases. So this is the point where roll pressure is maximum. So somebody asked in objective question, where is the roll pressure is maximum, where is the neutral point? At the exit of the roll, at the entry of the roll, entry of the strip, in fact, entry and then the exit. Roll pressure is maximum. And what is this? This is your L, projected length. And what about rolling torque? Then torque is equal to one standard book rolling load into standard book. They have not they are given in details. So torque T is equal to rolling load into rolling arm. So rolling that is T is equal to, and rolling arm, that is A, is equal to lambda into L. It is not a friction angle. Lambda is equal to constant, that is 0.43, and L is your that is your projected length. So power again now. Power is equal to torque into omega. Omega is equal to radian per second. If n is equal to RPM, then omega is equal to 2 pi n by 60. It will come into radian per second. But always sometimes it will given a RPS also. So torque, you can calculate the power. But I said power will be in 2 rolls, you have to multiply by 2 rolls. Up to this, everybody understood? Roll is specific pressure, torque, distribution of pressure. It is very simple because they all are empirical relation. So whether you all are okay today, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? Today evening, I want to arrange classes. Please tell me the class timing. Today evening, I will arrange. Ravi Chandranji, today evening we'll arrange class. Please tell the timing. I will arrange class at 9 o'clock is okay? 9 to 10? 9 to 10. 9 to 10. 10 p.m. All are okay? After dinner? Because I have to go to the hospital here. All are okay? Amal, Munir Babu, will continue. We'll solve all numerical problems. 9 to 10 today class will be arranged. And I have upgraded the Zoom. So there will not be any disturbances also. Today there is no disturbance. Okay, Nikhil. Okay. So please go through this today what I taught. And today we'll finish the rolling all numericals, and today we'll start wire drawing also. Okay, thank you.